Today, unfortunately, we get to see an officer do the butt scooting boogie. Hi friends, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host as always, John Correa.
I'm your co-host Mike Williver and host of the Active Self Protection podcast. Today's video comes to us from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Big Tech's Ordnance is my go-to source for accessories for all your defensive and competition firearms. They have great holsters with accessories for concealment and ship fast at great prices. I'm a proud customer and recommend them without hesitation. This patrol sergeant has pulled this guy over. I'm not 100% sure what the probable cause is for the stop, but he's gonna find out pretty quick. This guy does not have a driver's license on his person, and the action begins from there with audio.
What's going on?
So, I'm placing under investigative detention, okay? You cannot drive without a driver's license. You understand?
Investigative.
I'm gonna have you set my car.
Well, okay, yes, sir.
Okay? All right.
Okay.
Okay, step out for me. Put your right hand on your head for me. I put your hand. Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get out of the car! 3-5 dispatch, got shots fired.
Get out!
31st in class. And keep your hands up where I can see them.
I don't have any.
Keep your hands up!
I don't have any.
I'm okay right now. Keep your hands where I can see them. Keep the hands up. The guy pulled a gun in a ditch, so I don't know where it's at. Somewhere in the parking lot. Keep your hands up.
I've radically sped up this portion just for the sake of time. The sergeant's just gonna hold him here. Turns out the guy had yeeted the gun over the sergeant's head. He is a prohibited possessor. He's got a long criminal history. I put links in the description on that. They're gonna hold him there until other officers show up, get him into custody, and then get him to stay in a gated community. If we watch this in slow motion, this guy, watch him come out here and watch his right hand as he's gonna come over and show the gun and then toss it over the head, like off into the parking lot. And that is gonna make our sergeant, fall on his butt, get one shot off that we can't see the gun, get a second one off from a kind of a supported position here. Thankfully, nobody was harmed in this one. The officer did not hit the suspect either, and we're gonna think about some lessons. I mean, that's a lot, but a win's a win, right?
Sure.
Let's check out lessons. Mike, I know our private citizen viewers are going to wonder about a detention for an investigation that involves putting you in the back of the cruiser, but that's perfectly legal.
Yeah, absolutely. Supreme Court precedent has established that this is a perfectly legal thing for this officer to do. You've heard me say it before on the channel. I'm a big fan of, if we're going to be sitting here for a long time, if you are detained, I would rather have you either in cuffs on the sidewalk or in my car. Those cuffs can come off. You can come back out of the car if everything's good. But that way we're going to hopefully going to avoid this thing escalating when the bad guy decides to get froggy.
Well, and he probably wants him out of that car because, again, there's stuff in that car that he doesn't know. And so there's a good time. Let's get you out of that car for both of our safety, put you in a spot where I know you're cool. We can finish this investigation. And like you say, if everything's cool, we can come out of the car, you can get out of the cuffs, you can go home, everything's cool. Of course, we know now at this point, it's not cool.
Right, and the longer you give this guy, I mean, most people are going to sit in their car and be cool and hang out and see what the cops have to say, right? But in the case of this guy, the more time you give him in that car, the more time it gives him to think, hey, maybe I better run right now because I know I got a warrant, or I better run because I know I have a prohibited firearm in the car, or whatever. So getting him out of the car prevents a pursuit or an escalation.
And again, sometimes doing something early enough means you don't have to do more later, and I think that is valuable.
Absolutely.
So, the guy's talking to the guy, oh, okay, fine. Now, we know this guy has an extensive criminal history, but the sergeant doesn't know that the guy has an extensive history. Of course, that's probably why he's not giving up his driver's license, because he knows as soon as he does that, it's all going to show up and he's going to be in trouble. So he asks the guy to get out of the car. Oh, okay, fine. Tells him to put his right hand on his head, but instead the guy hides his right hand. And remember, the eyes are the windows to the soul, but the hands are the windows to the intent. The minute this guy wasn't showing his right hand, my teeth started itching.
Any cop with more than 3 months on the job knew exactly what was going on here. When he got out of the car, you could not see that right hand. he was intentionally concealing it behind him. I mean, we know now what he was doing, but that made me very uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, there's something in his right hand for sure. His body language is screaming that right now.
Now, I'm going to make an interesting suggestion out of this one, that the officer has a hold of his left arm here, and so a lot of times they're going to go around the front to go try to get that right hand and see what's going on, but that's the way the bad guy's going with it. In fact, I might recommend pushing that left arm away to go around behind the back of the bad guy to hook that right elbow to see if you can see it. Now, again, that's just a suggestion. Go to your own defensive tactics training. Make sure you do it in the way that they suggest in those things. But in my world, going around the backside, that's less chances for him to be able to bring whatever it is in that right hand to bear on you.
Sure. In his hindsight 2020, are we sitting here in a comfortable chair watching this? Absolutely we are. But we want people to learn these lessons. So maybe some officer in the future will have seen this video and think, remember what John said? Maybe I can try going around the back instead of around the front, and maybe avoid having someone Joe Montana a pistol over his head.
Yes, no kidding. Well, and listen, try it on the mats, right? So get in that habit of using that left arm as an arm drag towards the backside, so then that way, again, he has a harder time bringing that gun around to bear on you. Not saying it's the end-all, be-all. Very seldom are there the way in these kinds of things, but it's a way, and it might help you. So now, as the guy gets around, we know here that he yeets the gun, right? That he is tossing that gun. But of course, in the moment with all of that that's going on, this sergeant doesn't know that. All he knows is that this guy is presenting a firearm to him, and he's going to have to respond appropriately. And to me, somebody, presenting a firearm to me is 100% a justification in a stop like this to use deadly force in response.
Yeah, and if you go back to the original video here and you watch this at full speed, my absolute belief when I watched it the first time was this guy was bringing a gun around in order to fire at the officer. And what happens following this took thousandths of a second. Your brain does not work fast enough to realize, okay, he's not shooting at me, he's actually throwing the gun. And another thing, you get mental reps watching videos. You get mental reps as a cop in training. I've never seen someone come out of a car and throw a gun over the officer's head. I've never seen that before. So the odds that is what's happening, not really a thing.
Minuscule. In fact, I've never seen it happen before, but truth is stranger than fiction.
Right.
So the officer responds as we would expect him to, like, this guy's bringing the gun around to me, because my guess is he doesn't even see him throw it.
Right.
Now, a couple things when the officer goes down. I notice both his feet are parallel here. I don't think he tripped over himself. My guess is maybe he threw his head back or something like that. And going for his gun, he wants a little bit of space. Again, another kind of a way. You might have been better off to drive into this gun and practice that shooting from a very enclosed position, because trying to get that space, he ended up on his keister.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sergeant, if you want to hit me up, Mike at activeselfprotection.com. I'd love to talk to you about this, but I mean,
no shade, man.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here either. The later video shows a distance away from this car. I don't see any parking blocks or anything, so I'm not sure what happened. He might have thrown his head back, like you said, but he ended up on his butt. But he still responded pretty well, considering he ended up where he didn't want to be all of a sudden.
Well, and gets his gun out while that's happening in straight up under a second. Now, hopefully, again, he kind of cheated that draw a little bit when he saw that right hand coming. But really excellent work there. And then a very difficult second shot. So I'm sure he doesn't see the gun, didn't see the gun go over his head. And now this second shot, the sergeant is sitting on his butt. He's not quite braced yet on his left hand. Gun up in a single hand, trying to brace himself and get a hit. And man, not many people practice this on a remotely regular basis.
A couple things that I think are worth noting here. One is that this guy probably does more ab work than you or I do. And the other thing is that I think if your agency isn't doing live fire down and disabled training at least once a year, talk to your firearm staff, find a curriculum for that, and get after it. Because we used to train laying on our right and left side, shooting offhanded, shooting between your legs, like a crunch sit-up position, all sorts of stuff. So it could be that they trained that way. It could be that he just had the dexterity to pull this off at a moment's notice.
Well, and of course, you want to spend a lot more time on your flat range skills, right? You want to be really good with a gun in both hands, standing up, getting good sight picture and all that. Once that's really strong, like you can ace your post qual or something like that on the regular basis, then start really kind of practicing some of this stuff, because in that moment you don't want it to be the first time to go, I wonder how in the world I'm going to get a good and accurate shot off like this. One tiny thing here, I get why the sergeant moves forward so he can see the guy. He is kind of abandoning his B-pillar here. We know the guy had at least one gun in his hand. I'm guessing at this point maybe the sergeant realizes, hey, this guy's already tossed the gun or whatever, probably not going to have another one in there to shoot me with. But don't abandon your B pillar because that's your zone of safety. So just a little thing to be aware of.
Yeah, I'd like to see him a little further back, but he's just been in probably his first shooting of all time and is a little bit geeked up in this moment.
Well,
yeah.
we're picking really
Yeah.
small nits here, man.
Yeah.
This guy did a pretty good job.
I think he did a great job, as a matter of fact. But yeah, officers, if you're watching this at home, try to be a little bit further back than the B pillar. You can still control this guy without giving him a sort of a shot at you. And I'm not sure what that is on the ground in front of him. That might be the gun.
No, the gun was way off and away. It's
okay.
just another thing out of the car.
Yeah, so I just, if a crook has got one gun and he's willing to toss it away, that means he's not supposed to have guns. And if he has a second gun, he may be willing to use it. So just be careful.
One more tiny little nitpick. Officer does have a light on his gun, and inside that car is darker than I really would like it to. Great opportunity to turn on your pistol-mounted light and use that pistol-mounted light to gather some more information. Again, tiny little nitpick there, but again, not a lot of people practice with their pistol-mounted light. So yay, the light finally comes up and into play, but again, get that on there a little bit earlier. Good on this officer for surviving. Few interesting things for us, Mike. I really appreciate the insight, man.
I think he covered his asp.